Well, good afternoon. This is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant afternoon. And yes, we have a windy and rainy, blustery day going on down here in Texas. So if you hear or see the whole bus moving and some rattling and banging, that is the wind. We're getting some 70-kilometer-an-hour gusts. It's quite a blow going on. But I came across this article and I wanted to do a little piece on it because I am becoming very disturbed by what I'm seeing out there in the engineering, skills world, that kind of stuff, and that is the use of equity hiring. And this is a story about a ship that was sunk by an equity hire. And at first, you know, I mean, I got to admit, it did tickle my sense of humour, this thing running aground, especially as everybody was saved, nobody was hurt on board the ship. But like I say, this is becoming a growing problem. We had the issue with Delta Airlines, but this is an absolute disgrace. I mean, I will read the article for you, and it goes through the whole series of events that took place aboard the ship, and some opinions and some considerations about the whole issue. But, you know, the time-honoured way of having people do work is called meritocracy. And basically you had to earn your position in whatever it was that you were doing. And yes, that would be hard. It would be devastating. It seems unfair because there are people who don't have the same kind of advantages. But that is the test. That is a test that makes sure that the person holding the position is the best possible person for the job. It is meant to be exacting. It is meant to weed out the weak and the unfit and the unqualified, those incapable to hold the position. And because we have now moved those goalposts and we've moved into what we call a diversity hire, we are setting aside those standards, and we are giving people a chance, in this case, to drive a $100 million ship into a reef, just because it is ideologically correct. And I think that we're going to really be starting to see from here on in, because this whole idea has been going on certainly under the covers for quite a while, and it has now burst out into the open, and everyone is seeing, you know, exactly what is taking place here. And like I say, you know, Delta Airlines was a diversity hire called into question after that plane crashed. And you know, actually I have a bit of a background story on that, because I cut the fellow's hair who worked for Delta Airlines, and he told me that the woman who actually brought the plane in and ended up crashing the plane, was qualified. She was a pilot, she had a license, she just hadn't flown in a long time, and the pilot thought it would be okay to hand over the controls to her, and with devastating results. And this is what happens when people who are not qualified to hold the position. And I think this is going to get worse and worse and worse, because we now have, I mean, we had the scandal of parents paying for their kids to be able to enter, you know, a prestigious university and get that degree. A lot of that work was downloaded, and now that we have AI, you know, basically AI can write all of your papers, and with a modicum of research to make sure that they're correct, yes, you know, you are going to see people who just haven't got a clue. Should not be in that position, being basically able to get in the front door, and then because of equity quotas and because there just aren't enough people entering these fields, they have to lower the standards a little bit and let people who are basically pretty much incompetent in that position. I'm not saying they couldn't hold a lower position, or that they couldn't achieve that greatness to the peak of their profession, but that takes time, it takes stamina, it takes commitment, and it takes strength. because it is going to be grueling. And those people, who do get to the tops of their professions, they pay in full with their time that it took to get there. But to say that because somebody comes from a rich family, or that because you were born in one particular country or another, that you have an unfair advantage is just, it's a moot point, because it doesn't matter where you come from. I think everybody would agree with me that it really doesn't matter if it's a three-legged man from Mars who is performing that operation. If that is the best person to do the job, more power to him. I don't care. I'm not going to ask any questions. I just want the best person building a bridge, designing a bridge, to be qualified to do the job. Okay, so let's go over the story here. It is, tongue-in-cheek, kind of amusing, even though it is kind of shocking in its own right. So we'll go take a look at the story, we'll come back and I'll do a quick wrap-up. Okie dokie, here we go. Okay, this article from The Noticer. New Zealand Navy ship captained by lesbian diversity hire sank due to human error, inquiry finds. And there she is. There she is with her ship going down. A New Zealand Navy ship captained by a lesbian ran aground and sank off the coast of Samoa last month as a result of human error, including failure to turn off autopilot, a damning report has found. Chief of Navy Rear Admiral Garen Golding on Friday revealed the findings of an interim court of inquiry into the October 5th sinking of the $100 million Manawanui, which was commanded by UK-born Yvonne Gray. She's one of the 3 people now likely to face a disciplinary process. The direct cause of the grounding has been determined as a series of human errors, which meant the ship's autopilot was not disengaged when it should have been, Rear Admiral Golding said. The crew did not realise Manui remained in autopilot and, as a consequence, mistakenly believed its failure to respond to direction changes was a result of a thruster control failure. Having mistakenly assessed a thruster control failure, standard procedures should have prompted the ship's crew to check that the ship was under manual control rather than in autopilot. This check did not occur. Remaining in autopilot resulted in the ship maintaining a course towards land until grounding and eventually stranding. He said a separate disciplinary process would begin once the wider court of inquiry was completed, and that those likely to be examined for responsibility were the pilot, the officer overseeing the pilot, and the ship's commanding officer. Defence Minister Judith Collins, who called criticism of Captain Gray after the disaster misogynistic and praised her for saving lives by ordering an evacuation, said on Friday, "We are all terribly disappointed in what happened," and said New Zealanders could have full confidence in how the Navy and Defence Force were responding. And just might add here that in a situation like that, when the pilot is on the bridge, the captain would also be on the bridge. After the sinking of the ship, which was one of just 9 in the New Zealand Navy, and the first loss at sea since World War II, Captain Gray's position as commander came into question after it was revealed she had been promoted amid a push for diversity and inclusion in the Defence Force. She was lauded in a June 2023 New Zealand Department of Defence press release celebrating her and 3 other female commanders, in which one gushed about a culture change in the Navy due to a focus on diversity, equity and respect for personnel. Many New Zealanders asked why Captain Gray, who moved to New Zealand with her wife in 2012, was given command of a ship ahead of local candidates, and YouTuber iMalcontent slammed the incident and the New Zealand's Defence Force diversity, equity and inclusion policies in a scathing video. Captain Yvonne Gray has become the poster child of the New Zealand Navy to show how inclusive they are, said iMalcontent in his video. The Navy boasts about the number of females they have been recruiting and placing into senior roles, and Yvonne, being a lesbian, gave them another box to tick off. Being female and lesbian seems good enough reason to me to give her the keys of a $100 million ship. The YouTuber catalogued years of positive media coverage given to Captain Gray and noticed that another of the female captains praised alongside Miss Gray, Fiona Jameson, had crashed her own ship in May this year. Here's a photo of them together celebrating International Women's Day, the Boat Crashers Club, he said. No need to test for any competency. Let's celebrate that the Navy is now 27.4% female. Look at all those medals on their chests. I wonder what battles they fought for all those accolades, or if they were just participation trophies. He also highlighted the blanket media coverage of the praise for Captain Gray in managing to get her 75 crew off the ship without the loss of life, and mocked the Defence Minister for calling the evacuation a triumph. Imagine putting a bunch of people in danger, and when everyone luckily survives the danger and your nation is $100 million poorer, you get applauded as the hero in the situation, he said. I, Malcontent, then examined the NZDS LBGTTIQ Plus inclusion plan, which he called truly shocking. It manipulates all staff, and particularly their senior staff, into submission, he said. One example being that anyone who expresses homophobia or transphobia should be disciplined, and managers are encouraged to show support by wearing rainbow lanyards. Now, what do you think happens if a manager says that the lanyards are a bit silly or doesn't want to wear one? That's right, they get classed as homophobic and will be disciplined. But I, Malcontent, was not the only critic of Captain Gray's, with social media filling up with comments linking the sinking of the ships with the Navy's DEI policies. Between 2012 and 2022, the Royal New Zealand Navy could not produce one Zealand-born officer to command a Royal New Zealand Navy ship, said a Kiwi social media user, while political commentator Aussie Cossack simply said, "Diversity hire detected." Okay, here's the timeline of that event. On Saturday, 5th of October 2024, Manawanui was conducting survey operations on the southern side of Apia, Samoa, in a strong breeze of up to 25 knots and moderate swell. The survey was conducted in a box-shaped area running east to west in survey lanes that start on the outside working inwards. At about 6:15 p.m, the ship's crew attempted a routine turn to starboard, initially to a course of 340 degrees within the survey area as part of the turn. The crew attempted to turn off the 340-degree course to starboard towards an easterly course, but the ship did not respond as intended. Shortly after, Manawanui left the approved survey area, and in an effort to stop the ship, the crew conducted further actions that they believed should have resulted in the ship essentially breaking. Manawanui did not slow or stop, but instead the ship started to accelerate towards the reef, grounding for the first time at or about 6:17 p.m. at a speed of more than 10 knots. The ship then travelled around 635 metres, 400 yards, before coming stranded, grounding multiple times along the way. Full control of Manawaui's propulsion system was not regained until 10 minutes later at 6:27 p.m. when the ship's autopilot was disengaged. The inability to turn the ship to an easterly direction from the 340-degree course and stop the ship is attributed to the ship being in autopilot mode. Unsuccessful attempts were then made to manoeuvre the ship off the reef. Manawanui was brought to emergency stations after the grounding, and searches were conducted to check for damage. No damage or flooding was detected inside the ship. However, stability assessments made after the grounding indicated Manawanui was no longer stable. At approximately 6:46 p.m, about 30 minutes after the initial grounding, the decision was made to abandon ship. The timeliness of the decision to abandon ship and to keep Manawaui's generators running contributed to the successful abandonment process and likely prevented serious injuries or death. The ship suffered a series of catastrophic fires after being abandoned before capsizing and sinking on the morning of Sunday, October the 6th. So I hope you found that as thought-provoking as I did, because this is only one story of hundreds that I could have chosen from, of these disasters that are taking place all over the world now. And to be quite frank with you, I mean, I was, anything that is designed and built after, say, the year 2000, I would hold with a high degree of suspicion, because these things are going to start coming down. And I'm not saying all engineers are absolutely hopeless and useless, but what I'm saying is that when we lower our standards for excellence and allow people who haven't struggled to reach that pinnacle into those positions, into those seats of power, into those decision-making positions. And you know, I don't doubt for an instant that those people, they know that they are not able to do that job, and that they are flying by the seat of their pants, and this of course is going to make them very insecure in that position, and they're going to feel driven to make outlandish decisions to try and prove their capability and their qualification for that position. So it's kind of like a double jeopardy is going to be taking place, and until we start calling this out and drawing a halt to this kind of practice, and only meritocracy, and if that happens to be all women from a particular race, so be it, but as long as they are the best. That is the whole point here, not what your sexual orientation is, what your sex is, where you come from, who you are, what your background is. It's all irrelevant. The main point is, what we need in this world, if we are going to progress as a civilization, is the very best people doing the job, without influence of money, without influence of government. People, the best people for the job, the best scientists, the best engineers, all the way down the scale to the best carpenters, to, you know, the best plumbers. We should always be working on the basis of meritocracy, not lowering the standards, to make sure that we even up the balance of people entering a particular profession, especially when it comes to by race or by sexual orientation, or whatever your pronouns happen to be. I mean, we should have figured this out long before this. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was bound to fail, absolutely bound to fail, and here we are, we're seeing the results, we're seeing the harvest that we are reaping by planting that bad seed. Okay, well, those are my thoughts and opinions on that particular subject, and yeah, I'm sure many of you will actually agree with me, because personally, okay, just my opinion, I think that this is the common sense position, and it's something that we should all be striving for, and stepping out of the way of those who are best qualified, and allowing them to rise to the top of their career. Okay, well, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe below, and in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant afternoon, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.